Hey, what's going on? Just coming at you for a little bit. Want to talk about the war in heaven and why it started, or why I believe it started, based upon my own research and whatnot, and looking into matters as best as I can, trying to find whatever I can to, to get some kind of information on what went down at a time where probably none of us was even a thought in anybody's mind except for the Most High God, right? Like it says in the book, I knew you before you were formed in the womb. But yeah, the war in heaven. Why did it start? Well, you remember in the book of Revelations, it says suddenly, and then there was war in heaven, and the dragon and his angels fought, and they prevaileth not, and they were cast down and out of heaven by Michael and his angels, and they were thrown into the earth. So to me, the whole thing about the war in heaven, I don't necessarily believe it was like a battle that we see in TV or on movies, where, I know there's symbolic representations of the archangel having a sword and, angels smiting demons with swords and that kind of thing. In some literature, they have those images. They present those images, but I think all that is more symbolic. I don't think, after all, it is in heaven, and those are worldly type weapons. So, and to me, the whole thing about the war in heaven, if you're going to go to war with God, the first thing you got to do is separate from God. Like for Satan, like we talk about people being separated from God now, which is why people are spiritually asleep, and which is why people have egos now, because they're separated from God. But if you're going to separate from God for the sake of going to war with God, the separation in and of itself disempowers you. There's only power in the light, not in the darkness of shadow. So if you separate from God, if the Lucifer separated from God, then he would have no longer been an angel of light. He would have been a creature of shadow. And shadow, that in and of itself causes you to descend. So I don't think the war is a typical kind of earthbound war like you see Mel Gibson's Braveheart and that kind of thing. I think it was an immediate casting down, and because when Lucifer separated, he ceased to be light and became shadow. Even the Messiah said, I saw Satan fall as lightning to the earth, so in an instant. So I don't think it would have been like a long drawn out battle. But why did it happen? Again, I'm going to say this. I've said it before. on occasion. I don't believe it happened because Lucifer refused to bow down to Adam, or he refused to serve man, or I don't think the devil was jealous of man. I didn't get that from my personal research. As a matter of fact, I think it was totally opposite. I think Lucifer was okay with it to serve man. He was like all for it. That was his assignment. And he did it. As a matter of fact, he was too good at it, which is why the war started. Think about it. Go back to the book of Genesis. And, okay, God created Adam, right? And then after a while, okay, God says creation, looked at creation, and he saw that everything was good, right? But then all of a sudden, something wasn't good. God said it's not good that man should be alone. So there was something that wasn't good. So what happened? He put the man into a deep sleep. A deep sleep. And then while he was sleeping, pulled out one of his ribs, formed a woman. A helpmate, a wife. Now here's where it gets kind of weird and strange and maybe even confusing. He put Adam into a deep sleep. But nowhere does it say he brought Adam up out of that sleep. Remember, we talk about spiritual sleep, spiritual wakefulness and whatnot, whether you're asleep or whether you're woke. He didn't bring Adam back up out of that sleep. So, that being said, Eve was able to wander. You know, you're in a state of spiritual sleep. And, a measure of your consciousness is lacking. So Eve is able to wander. And here's where it gets strange. Like, again, strange. Like, another thing I say from time to time, in order to really understand what the Bible is talking about, sometimes you got to look at it in an inverted fashion. Like, whatever's said, you got to flip it upside down or turn it inside out to get the true meaning. And that's in a lot of scripture of the Bible. You literally have to turn a lot of it inside out to really get the true meaning, because if you take it as is, you're going to understand it wrong. For instance, the very first time I came across that phenomenon was in the book of Genesis again, when it says of Adam and Eve, and their eyes were opened, and they knew they were naked. Okay, so their eyes were open. That would imply that you've awakened. But if you've awakened, how can you no longer detect the presence of God? They hid themselves from God. They were hidden from God. God called out to Adam, where are you? So how could, and their eyes were opened, mean that they were awakened if they were able to be hidden from God? So it kind of means the opposite. They were awakened to a different kind of reality, a reality that had nothing to do with heaven and everything to do with earth. But back to the service of Lucifer. I believe Lucifer agreed. And here's where it gets interesting. Eve wanders in the vicinity of the wrong tree. And because Adam sleep, who's Lucifer gonna serve? Whose desire is he gonna serve? Whose wish the serpent is gonna serve? The helpmates. I mean, after all, she was his helpmate, so she had a certain level of authority in certain ways. And since Adam was never wakened from his sleep, so to speak, to full capacity, the serpent, Lucifer, or whatever you want to call him, understood what Eve wanted. They had that intuitive link, connection, mental. He understood what she wanted, and he proceeded to serve her and said, hey, and the only way he could serve her was to tell her the opposite. The only way he could give her what she wanted was to tell her the opposite of what God told her. Like, she wanted the fruit. If he'd have told her, do what God says, she would have never gotten the fruit. But he couldn't tell her that because he was obligated to serve their desires. And their desires was to eat the wrong fruit. So he told them a lie. And they ate the fruit. And I believe it was around about that time when Adam went to sleep and Eve began to wander. Now think about it. Adam, spiritual sleep. So that's, again, a level of consciousness is gone. His helpmate wanders. Another type of separation. You know, Adam and Eve is becoming separated from each other. And it was around that time when all this stuff is going on that Lucifer began to fall to serve them, to tell them how, counsel them how they can get what they desire to eat, that fruit. And the only issue now that people experience in this day and age is that Lucifer, Satan, is still serving people, but in the wrong way, in the way of darkness, because people separated themselves from God. Adam separated himself from God. Yeah. If you really read the book carefully enough, it'll even demonstrate that God told Adam, not Eve, not the serpent. He told Adam, because of you, the grounds of the earth is cursed. So Lucifer was still there. The serpent was still there, still the servant of Adam and Eve, but in an inverted type of way. The devil serves people in a satanic way. He tempts them, and he gives them pain instead of pleasure. He gives them vices as opposed to blessings. but he's still serving people because people still wish to remain in darkness. People still wish to be unconscious because that's what they know. That's what they, their identities are, their egos, and they're proud of their egos and what image they've made for themselves in their minds. They call themselves kings and queens. They call themselves good and great. And here everybody's basically depressed and sick, nervous, hostile. It's backwards. It's inverted. But nevertheless, Lucifer is still there, serving mankind in an inverted way. And who knows? Who knows? If people really come to an understanding collectively of what it means to really wake up, and they start ascending back unto the light to reverse the curse, maybe Lucifer will still be there serving, and maybe as people, because people are in control, people are still commanding the devil. If they weren't, they wouldn't be able to rebuke the devil. If they couldn't be able to cast out demons if they really knew how. But they technically have the ability. So people still can command the devil. They just not doing it. Because they see Satan as their adversary as opposed to their servant. So if they see him as the enemy, then he's going to tempt you to do evil. But if they, like the Messiah said, love your enemies, which doesn't mean to be affectionate toward the devil, it just means to become conscious of the devil, shed light on the devil, and maybe whatever demon that vexes you will transmute back into your guardian angel. I mean, that's the impression I get from reading the book. But until you do, I mean, like it says when the Messiah, he went to the wilderness, got tempted, and after it was all said and done, rebuked the devil. The angels came and ministered unto him, and he went forth with the power and authority that he had to perform the miracles. But the devil is still serving people. And even though people call him the adversary, he's still a servant. Something like a inverted ministering angel. And it's kind of wild, ain't it? Kind of far out. But it's up to you to reverse the curse. But yeah, that's why the war started in heaven. If I didn't make it clear, the war started in heaven because meanwhile, Adam and Eve are on earth wishing to not do wishing to disobey God. And since it was Satan's job, Lucifer's job, to serve Adam, then guess what? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So when Adam wished to disobey on earth, Lucifer decided to disobey in heaven. God wasn't having that. Yeah, Lucifer was following Adam's lead. And they ended up together on earth. And now the earth is filled to capacity with demons and suffering people. Anyway, something to think about. But thank you for listening. Hope you're doing well. Subscribe to this channel. And God bless.